When it comes to final expense sales, there are plenty of do's and don'ts that we all have to deal with. It takes time to learn the process, and of course, we all have to deal with different situations in our own way. The idea of having good final expense sales training is so that we are conditioned to have an automatic answer to any question that might be asked, or to have a systematic approach to dealing with each situation. In this video, we're going to talk about one-leggers next. So for those of you who are new to the channel, my name is Doug Massi, and I do enjoy teaching final expense agents the same sales techniques and tactics that have worked for me over the years. Before we get into the video, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and hit that little subscribe button below, as we're putting out new training material every single week. Also, stick around to the end of this video, as I'm going to show you how to get a free copy of the custom memorial planning guide that I give out to all my clients. So dude, let's get on with the video already. For those of us who may be new at sales or simply do not know what a one-legger is, let me explain. Not only in final expense sales, but in all sales, a one-legger is simply a term that salespeople use to describe a situation where one of the spouses or decision makers is not present for the sales meeting, pitch, or presentation. Final expense salespeople often assume that if you have a husband and wife team, both of them must be present for the presentation. This is simply not true. I will say this: if you're thinking about asking the client whose spouse isn't present a question like, "Are you able to make your own decision without your wife present?" you're doing it all wrong. This is simply the wrong approach and absolutely the wrong way to find out if they're truly able to make their own decision without said spouse being present. Having good technique for these type of final expense sales situations takes time to learn, and experience helps too, but it also takes some common sense. If you think about it, everyone wants to be independent, and the last thing that I want is to let you think that I'm incapable of making my own decisions without my wife. Now, whether it's about finances, health, or buying the right kind of milk. Seniors can be especially sensitive in this area. They don't want to tell you that they need help making financial decisions or that they can't spend money without speaking with their spouse or son, but they sure as shit will use it as an excuse not to buy. The bottom line is, when pitching a one-legger, the important things to know is if the insurance is actually only for the person you're with, if it makes sense for them to buy the insurance without said spouse being present, and most important, who the breadwinner is in the household. If I sit down with someone whose spouse is at work, I ask them about the type of work that the spouse does. I then ask them what type of work that they do. If they tell me they don't work, then we know they probably have very little say, if any, in making financial decisions. I let them know that we'll need to reschedule so I can come back and go over this with both of them, as they both are probably going to want it. If the prospect then says something to me like, "No, this is just for me, I don't need her," or they may say, "I don't want him to be the beneficiary, it's for the kids," then we definitely want to go forward and make the presentation. Keep in mind, the prospect is telling me this without me asking something that could actually make them feel like I have doubt about their ability to make their own basic or financial decisions. If I'm sitting with a spouse that works and the other spouse doesn't work and is not present, I ask them if their spouse has their burial or cremation taken care of. They will say yes or no. No matter what they say, my next question is going to be, "Well, let me ask you this, Mr. Jones. Who do you want to be the beneficiary of your insurance money?" A lot of times, again, they will say, "Well, my children." So here's that scenario where you definitely do not want the spouse there, as they will likely just be against getting the insurance anyways. This is why I say that when it comes to final expense sales, a lot of this is common sense. Another scenario is where the prospect is single but has a son or daughter that helps them with things like their bills. I suggest you check out our video called "How to Overcome the Objection I Have to Speak with My Daughter or Son First." This is a great video for how to deal with those type of situations without having to overcome the "speaking with my daughter first" objection. Now, when I'm sitting with someone who has a daughter or son that takes care of their bills, I know that getting another appointment with the three of us together is highly unlikely, unless the two of them actually live together. This is where I ask the prospect a few questions like, "Well, Mrs. Jones, who's the person that will be stuck with having to come up with the money to pay for your funeral? If they say the daughter, then I will go a little further with the questions and say something like, does your daughter help to take care of you? I then might say something like, sounds like it's going to be pretty painful for your daughter once you're gone. So is this insurance so that your daughter won't have to pay for your final expenses out of her pocket and on her own? I'll then ask something like, how do you feel about your daughter having to come up with the money to pay for your final expenses or your funeral while she's in mourning and upset because her loving mother died? At this point, it's really a judgment call because you're either going to go through with the presentation and go for the close, or just leave with no chance whatsoever of a sale. I sell a lot of these, but sometimes I do get to the end only to have the client tell me, oh, my daughter has my checkbook, or the bank statements go to my daughter's house. Like I told you before, Doug, she takes care of all of that for me. The way I see it, I would rather go through the presentation and find out if I can close the sale than try to get the appointment with the daughter and mom together. In this situation, it could really go either way. The simple fact again is that final expense sales is a unique industry. You never know what will happen and who will buy. One of my largest final expense sales ever was with a guy that I presented to in a McDonald's. So I'm door knocking leads a few years ago, and I think this guy was ashamed of his home or something. He was acting kind of sneaky and didn't want to do anything around his wife. I pushed and pushed to sit with him outside on the porch to make him comfortable, but he kept asking if we could do it at McDonald's, and even worse, on another day. I backed off and decided to schedule the appointment because you never know. When I called him on the day of the appointment, he answered the phone and we met. He simply wanted to buy the insurance for his wife and didn't want her to be stressed out about the cost. This was almost a $200 monthly premium for a $25,000 policy. He had actually been trying to get something through his current life insurance agent. His agent didn't specialize in final expense and totally dropped the ball on it. Guys, if you're interested in getting information on our final expense sales program, or are interested in getting a copy of that memorial planning guide that I mentioned earlier, email me at doug@ufesonline.com. Happy hunting and good luck on your final expense sales.